With the release of 0.5.9, Ollama announced that the DeepScaleR model was added to the Ollama library. This is a 1.5 billion parameter model that claims to surpass O1 preview on popular math evaluations. This model takes the distilled DeepSeek-R1 Qwen 1.5 billion parameter model and fine-tunes it using their dataset, which you can find on Hugging Face. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of many OpenAI models, but I am sure that the claim that this is better than O1 preview, that's a bit of a stretch. In this video, like the other model reviews I've done, we'll try to grade the model based on a set of questions and criteria that I've come up with. It's not a perfect match to what this model was designed for, but later on I'll talk about a more appropriate set of questions as well. In my live streams about DeepSeek-R1, it was suggested that I shouldn't grade a reasoning model based on its thinking stage, even though that is definitely part of the output of the model. I think it should be included, since it's part of the output. But in this video, I'm going to consider both circumstances, grading the output ignoring the thinking stage, and then grading the output using the thinking stage as well. But time then does factor into it. If a model takes longer than a few different thresholds before the first response, kind of like time to first byte in web performance, then I'll take some points away. But that only really applies when thinking is ignored. Then you can decide which is the right way to do it. The machine this is running on is mind-blowing. It has 8 H100 GPUs, each with 80 gigs of VRAM and well over a terabyte of regular RAM. So if it takes longer than 5 seconds after the model is loaded, then it loses a point. 30 seconds and it loses 2 points, and 60 seconds loses 3 points. If it takes 2 minutes or longer to start answering, so finish thinking, well, that's 6 points off for that question. But the equivalent on most regular GPUs would be many, 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 many more minutes. So I think that's pretty fair. Okay, so let's load up the DeepScaleR 1.5 4km model and ask the first question. Without using the letter E, write a 3-sentence story about a cat chasing a mouse. Now, obviously at 1.5 billion parameters, this thing is super fast, especially on these H100s. I was getting around 180 tokens per second for a lot of the questions. This question finished in 3 seconds. Once upon a time, in a cozy little house near a fence, there lived a mischievous cat named Max. The mouse was curious and wanted more cheese, so it decided to run away quickly. Max, though determined, didn't have the energy to keep up with the mouse's relentless pace. Now, I realize that this isn't the strong suit of this model, but I was expecting it to at least try to get this right. So out of 18 possible points, I can only give it 7. If I disregard thinking stage, it gains 3 points because it finished so fast. But both options are off to a bad start. So let's move on to the next question. If you stack all the playing cards in a standard deck vertically, with each card rotated 45 degrees clockwise from the one below it, what shape would you see when looking down from above? This one took 20 seconds, and thankfully it got the answer right. If it were a bit shorter, I would have given it a perfect score. But we're up to 19 of 33. Disregarding thinking gets a bit more at 25 of 33. Let's move on to figure out an analogy. If apple is to fruit, as hammer is to tool, create a new analogy following this pattern using completely different concepts. Oh my God, car is to road? Really? Scroll up and it explains the logic there, but I don't understand. The hammer is to tool is great, but that was in the question, and it has to find different analogies. I think I gave it more points than it deserved, now totaling 29 out of 51, with the alternate skipping thinking getting 36 out of 51. Next is explain quantum entanglement to a 5-year-old using only items found in a typical kitchen. This one took 2 seconds of thinking. And we have an interesting answer. I'm not sure how many marbles one finds in a typical kitchen. We don't have any in ours, that I know of. I guess it's somewhat creative, but everything else about this answer is terrible. When you pick 2 marbles, sometimes they match. Wow. We now have 35 and 44 out of 66. Next is create a haiku about artificial intelligence that contains a paradox. So there is one constraint, and that's on the number of syllables in each line. 5, 7, 5. It took 7 seconds. An AI cannot be written that writes itself, leading to a paradox. 8, 4, 7 syllables. That's a long way from 575. So there were a few others in the thinking, but I don't think any of them were right. I'm now at 40 and 51 out of 84. Next comes a more creative one. If colors had temperatures, what would purple taste like? Explain your reasoning. 4 seconds later, thinking is done, and we get this. There is nothing in this answer about taste. I may have been too kind again, but I now have 46 and 59 out of 102. I'm going to start skipping some of the questions here and just look at the ones that are math related. What's wrong with this sequence? 1, 4, 9, 16, 23, 36, 49. Fix it and explain the pattern. Now, we should see the full sequence with the corrected number. Unfortunately, we got part of it and then an explanation that the sequence may still change. And we got that after thinking for 45 seconds, the longest spent on any question. Ugh. The other question that was a bit relevant was the programming question. Write a function that takes a string and returns true if the string contains all the letters in the word goal, G-O-A-L, in any order or case, and false otherwise. Show an example input that would return true and one that would return false. This took about 16 seconds. It converts the case and checks if the letters are present. I pasted the method into a program and it works perfectly. So after all my questions that I ask every model, I have a final score of 112 out of 210, which is 53. And if you choose to ignore the thinking stage, then it would be 136 out of 210, which is 65. So this was with the 1.5 billion parameter model at Q4KM. And you might be thinking, well, it's going to do a whole lot better with the questions it was designed for and using the FP16 model. I so wish that were true. I took a bunch of questions from the OmniMath dataset as well as its own dataset on Hugging Face. I tried about 10 questions. They all churned on the question for 30 to 45 seconds. And only one of the 10 questions was answered correctly. And it wasn't just wrong, it was really, really, really wrong. Like one question asked for a sum of values. That's what you're supposed to output. It's a sum of values. And the answer the model gave was that there were 4 points on the circle. That is not a sum of values. I feel like I should definitely revisit the criteria for grading because I think the scores for this model make it seem a whole lot better than it really is. I love small models and I get so excited whenever they show up, but this one is special. I would love to hear your thoughts on this model in the comments below. Do you like this model? Which model should I look at next? Well, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video really, really soon. Thanks so much. Bye.